right. Welcome, welcome. My name is Elisha Halpin. If we've never met before, delighted to be here with you. I love working in this way. I love teaching. I am the teaching and learning coordinator for the Institute for Intuitive Intelligence, and I support creatives and visionaries, healers, guides to embody their full essence. And part of that for me is embodying your intuition. And so I'm quite delighted to be here with you today to have a conversation on the types of intuition, and that is plural. And what I loved about learning and discovering this for myself was that it kind of opened up my whole experience of understanding who I really am as an intuitive being. So before we get started, let's just take a few breaths and get centered together. So you can place a hand on your chest or your belly. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. And take a deep breath in. Let it go. And just do that again, maybe a little bit softer, falling away of that exhale. And as we begin, my first question for you is, do you know, do you believe that you're intuitive? Do you believe it? For myself, yes. Yeah, for myself, I always knew I was intuitive. I always believed that, but I didn't understand how to live it. I didn't understand how to inhabit my intuition. In fact, my relationship with my intuition was that it would come when I needed to make a big decision or a big choice. And maybe that is your experience as well. And what I really came to understand as I deepened and matured in my own evolutionary journey is that my intuition is my innate superpower. And it's not coming or going, and it's meant for every part of my life. And so that's why I want to talk to you about the types of intuition, because you might be like me, or you might have a slightly different story, but you might be just applying your intuition in some areas. And so over this series that we're doing in March, embodying your intuition, and these kind of foundational conversations, we're going to be exploring what intuition is, how we can use it, and how it's maybe here to support us or here to enliven us in a way that maybe we are missing, maybe culturally we're not talking about, or we're having maybe the wrong conversations about intuition. Yes, I love that book as well. So intuition is part of your nature. It's just literally part of your nature. It is part of who you are. I still like to think of it as a gift, but it's not a special gift that only some of us have, or some of us have more of, and some of us have less of. Our lived experience of our intuition might be more or less, depending on some factors that we'll talk about, but everyone's intuitive. It is simply part of who we are. It's part of our makeup. And it's part of our operating sensory engagement system. In fact, I like to think about intuition as a sensorial system. So we've got our senses that work through our gross anatomy, and our intuition is the senses that work through our subtle anatomy and infuse or work through or translate into our gross anatomy. So when we think about embodying our intuition, my invitation for us is to not leave intuition as some cognitive thing or some mysterious abstract thing, but that it's actually a lived experience through our body, through this subtle sensory system coming into our physical sensory system, and that we can translate it into our lived experience. So from that perspective, intuition might not be us trying to figure out the right answer to predict the future so that we avoid certain situations or feelings, right? Many of us have this relationship, and we're often, this is the way it's spoken about or talked about, that our intuitions like to get the answer so that we do life right, so that we avoid feeling uncertainty, so that we avoid feeling disappointment, so that we avoid not being inside of a really cushy comfort zone, right? Anybody have that relationship or been taught that relationship? Yeah, me too, right? So we have to throw that out. That is a myth. Our intuition's not to protect us from living the fullness of life. Okay? That is just a misnomer, and that's just more of our ego wanting to control this experience, this human, messy, vast experience. So, intuitive or not, we get the whole pie of life, which means there are slices that we may not like as much and slices that we like a whole lot. But that if I'm trying to use my intuition to keep myself from experiencing all that life will bring, I'm not having a full experience of life. What I believe is that our intuition and the infusing of it into our life, this allowing these subtle sensory systems, this guidance and support to come in, means I trust myself with whatever part of life has arisen. So when I arrive in that rough patch or the waves are a little more choppy, what I can do is I can navigate that place because of my intuition. So I'm not using my intuition to try and block life, because that would be a misuse, and probably not even very intuitive, but it's great. Yes, we're going to do, I think there's a whole session, Melissa, on whether it's fear or intuition. I believe that's in this month as well, because that's a big part of it. It's a big part of it. Is this my fear or is this intuition? And maybe you'll get some clues on that as we keep going. Would you mind saying where you're a teacher? Yeah, I'm a teaching and learning coordinator and a lead mentor for the Institute for Intuitive Intelligence. Yeah. So I believe that this edict that was written above the temple doors, know thyself, right? It's written in the forecourt when you come in. So before you enter the temple, there's this edict, know thyself. And I think we often have misinterpreted that to know ourselves at the egoic personality level. And that's where self-help has arisen, right? And we're all wanting to fix our personality and fix these parts of ourselves that aren't doing enough, or, what we don't need to be fixed. We do, however, need to know ourselves at a deeper level. So what is it to know the self, this ever-changing, infinite, magnificent, brilliant consciousness that is bigger, deeper, vaster, brighter than our personality? So much of our personality arises out of reaction to circumstances where we're being taught separation. So part of our personality is inherently held in separation. And if I work at that level of personality, and if I believe in protecting my personality, then I am going to be missing the full experience of who I am. I'm not able to see myself as whole, because inside my personality, built from separation, I'm going to continue to need to separate myself from people, from others. So if we want to, as I believe a lot of us do, and especially if you're here in this type of container, this curiosity of how does humanity do this thing better, this thing called life better? How do we actually come into supporting ourselves and living in oneness, right? How do we become a true human family? I believe it's through embodying our intuition, through coming into this process of embodiment. Because if I don't need to protect my personality, and I don't need to hold myself as separate, because I know myself as a wholeness, right? I am not just the drop of the ocean. I am the ocean in a drop. And if I'm able to live from that place, then I don't need to protect myself from you. I don't need to go to war with you, right? A lot could shift inside of our human experience from this place. Excuse me, runny nose. So here's the thing though. If we're gonna know ourself, really know thyself in that big grand gesture, that deep, deep place, we gotta change our minds. We gotta change our minds about ourselves. One of the biggest blocks to embodying our intuition are the places we're holding ourselves as unworthy, where we're holding ourselves as less than, where we're in comparison and perfectionism and judgment. So I'm going to encourage you right now, if you've got a piece of paper, write some things down. If not, you can just think about them and write them down later. Where are you holding yourself as less? Where are you in a place of unworthiness? Where are you comparing yourself or judging yourself? And are you willing to get really raw and clear about those places right now? 1, 100, I don't care. Are you willing to meet them? Because to become the highly intuitive, to really ignite this superpower within you, you're going to have to change your mind about yourself. And that could be in this moment in instant lightning. Bam. All right. You know what? I'm done with that story. I'm laying it down. I'm not going to hold that against myself anymore. I'm not going to believe that. I'm not going to go scrolly on Facebook or Instagram or wherever and look at what she's doing or he's doing and la 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 la. Right? And some of these places might be more deeply inscribed, and you're going to have to walk it out little by little, step by step. That's fine. The process is the process, whether it happens in a moment or over time until all at once. But are you willing to change your mind about yourself? Are you willing to say, I am worthy. I am whole. I am enough. I am a divine being having a confusing, messy human experience. Are we willing to admit that this human experience is difficult? It's messy, it's wild, it's crazy, it's unpredictable, it's uncertain. And yet, inside of all of that, it is beautiful, it is necessary, it is magical, and I am enough. The more that we accept all of it, right? The more that we accept all that's going on, the more that we're going to soften. And in that softening, we can receive more of our fullness. Yeah, the question, are we willing to change our mind about where we're being unworthy, where we're not enough, where we're judging, where we're in comparison? Are we willing to change it? Are we willing to change it? And for me, it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of, there's some stories that, yes, I can actually just stop that scrolling and comparison, and also day by day to really support myself into moment by moment breathing into, I am whole, I am worthy, I am enough, I am human, and I am divine at this same moment, right? It's big stuff. It's big stuff to create a life that's spacious enough for my human self and my divine self to dance. A couple of other things I want to talk about that keep us from being in our highly intuitive superpower state. Okay, so we've talked about our unworthiness, our stories of less than. I think that's huge. The feelings. So often it's not even the stories. Maybe you're not actively telling yourself that you're enough, but there's just sort of this feeling state, this hum. You can even see my body as I tap into this, right? Like my shoulders start to slump and I get a little hunchy, right? So there can be these feeling states that are living in our body that are keeping us in this unworthiness. Just shift that spine. Our belief in separation. And again, this might not be a conscious belief, but what we could find is that the fruits of our life are showing us that we believe in separation. We're at war with ourselves. We're at war with others. We feel we need to protect ourselves. There's this sense that someone's out to get me, all of those things. Those might be fruits of our belief in separation. Okay, that's a little bit deeper, but I'll just plant that seed there, however that's showing up. Our unregulated nervous system. So no matter what amount of work you're doing, and there's lots of ways that you can do this work, it's never enough. And I don't mean that as in like we're not good enough. I mean that we are unlimited consciousness, and our nervous system is designed to continue to facilitate that level, higher levels of consciousness into the body. And so to do that, we must continuously regulate our nervous system so that it stays in a state to receive more of our consciousness. And so when our nervous system is dysregulated and it's in dissonance and chaos, we cannot be in our wholeness. We cannot be in our fullness. And so regulating our nervous system is essential. Brush your teeth, regulate your nervous system. These are essentials. When we're in our beta brainwaves, so our high beta brainwaves, our stress brainwaves, that means what's happening there when we're in these stress brainwaves and we're worrying and we're anxious and we're in all of this chaos. One, we're putting that back out into the field. So we're actually creating more chaos in the world. And we're living from just a small portion of our system. So if we think about our brain is just a small portion of our body, and our body's inside of our wholeness, or I'll call it our soul, our causal body. And we're stuck in this tiny part of our brain, not even our whole brain. So our whole brain's not firing. We're not moving from integration. We're just in a tiny part of our brain. So we're living into a very small window of who we are. And so we have to, cognition is amazing. It's an amazing gift. It's an amazing part of being human, that we can cognate things, we can figure things out. And I can drive a car, and I can bake cakes, and I can do, math problems and things like that. And I can cognate. That's really important. And it's really a beautiful part of life. But when I fall into the shadow of logic, right? Logic only works, logos only works when it's married to Sophia, when it's married to wisdom. Logos and Sophia must be in partnership. So if I'm just trying to live from the shadow of my logic and my cognitive self, and I just stay stuck in these high beta brainwaves, right? Then I'm really not living. I'm really just trying to manage a small part of my system. And so what I like to invite us to do is to live at the beta alpha threshold, right? So where we're able to cognate, I can still do the human things, but that I'm doing it from more of a relaxed and open state, right? So that I'm able to stay in relaxation. So much of my work is about bringing through the polyvagal lens this ability to have our system, our parasympathetic and sympathetic system, or our dorsal and ventral vagal systems operating together, so that we're in our wildly creative state. Other things that are going to be blocking our intuition are subconscious fear beliefs. And again, it can be difficult to go, well, how can I work with my subconscious? But we'll see the fruits of that in our life. We will see the outplay of that. Our personality and our life will be exposing to us what these subconscious beliefs are. And so when we're willing to meet them, right, rather than being subject to them, when we're willing to make them the object of our curiosity, and to get curious about why is that behavior going on? What's going on there? What belief would have me stuck in that place, right? Then we can begin to work with our subconscious. The other way, of course, to do that is to get into a process that takes us into deeper and changes the brain waves even more, so that we're even moving out of alpha, we're going deeper into theta, where we can access more of this subconscious state. And the last thing that I'll just name today that can block us from our intuition is being disconnected or disassociated from our sensory system. So many times we're actually running what we think are our emotions or our feelings through that cognition. And we could tell you, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm angry, but we don't actually feel it. We're not in touch with the sensorial aspects of our life. And so when we're cut off from the sensory system, we are blocking the fullness of our intuition coming in, because our intuition, again, is going to arrive, that subtle sensory system is going to plug right in to our fuller system. And I think next week or in another session, we're going to talk about the clairs and how those pair up with our sensory system. But that can be a huge block if we're not feeling, right? And so that can just even be letting yourself get more tactile, really tasting your food, slowing down to smell and to see and to hear and to feel, to be with what's here. Often the moment that we go into naming, like I'm happy, we've actually stepped out of feeling it, right? We've stepped out of feeling it. We've gone into the script of what we think happy is supposed to be. And then we kind of put on that happy mask and we play that out. absolutely that our illnesses can come from not having this, from being stuck in those high beta brain waves. And as someone who has come into a lot of this experience and knowledge from going through an autoimmune journey, I can attest that being stuck in that tiny part of myself and living in my high beta brain and living in my super frozen self, that, you know, stuck in my fight flight system, that absolutely that creates damage and wreaks havoc on our physical body and can present as an illness, most definitely. So there are types of intuitions, right? I said that before. And this is important to know because if it's, you know, if there's multiple intuitions, then there's multiple ways for us to engage, and there's different levels of growth and things we can think about. And every intuition, every part of intuition, every type of intuition has a place to play in our life. It plays a part, right? And so that as I talk about these, I don't want you to think about them in a hierarchy of like the lofty intuition and the low intuition, or, you know, or these aspects. But there is a bit of like growing through, like we'll start at a certain place and we want to grow and expand. But what happens is we get into that expanded or higher state of intuition. It's not higher in a hierarchy, it's higher in that it opens our consciousness. And so that means that all the parts of my intuition are playing their role. They're all operating and serving me, and we're working together. So at the Institute for Intuitive Intelligence, what we say is that you are the oracle and your body is the technology you need. So I'm not going to teach you to read tarot cards or oracle cards or use a pendulum. Now, you could choose to do that as part of how you work with your intuition, but what I'm going to teach you is about how you can find all of that through your own sensory system. And that then anything that you would ally with or partner with would be a support rather than having your power, right? It might be an inspiration rather than I have to have it. I have to have something else besides my system, because your system wasn't designed to be super powered by your intuition. You were designed to live in an intuitive state. Okay? So what you need, you've already got it. What I love about this is that for me, as a Western woman who was conditioned into materialism, that when I first began this journey, I thought I needed a lot of stuff to go along with getting my intuition on point so I could really trust it. And the more that I've come into the authority and to seat myself as the oracle of my life, then I've realized that anything I have, a book, cards, I mean, I'm wearing crystals. I love crystals. I love them. They're beautiful. They're my friends. But I don't need it to be intuitive, right? It becomes the sprinkles upon my beautiful little cupcake. So what are the types of intuition? We've got two main types of intuition: local and non-local. Local and non-local. So local intuition is biological. It's our gut instinct. And it's what societally we kind of accept as intuition. So this is the one that maybe we're more familiar with. And what's happening there is we're energetic beings. We're energy first. And so I am always sensing and reading energy. I am always in contact with the electromagnetic field of myself, with others, with the environment, and I am constantly reading and I'm constantly taking in information. So even when I'm not aware, even when I don't bring this into my awareness, this is happening. This is always happening. And these two types of intuition that I'm talking about, this again comes from the work that we do at the Institute for Intuitive Intelligence. And Dr. Ricky Jane Adams has done a secondary analysis. And so we're looking at the work that came through Carolyn Mace. Thank you, Carolyn, such an amazing teacher. And through the work at HeartMath. Thank you, HeartMath Institute, for the amazing research that you're doing. And I'm also a HeartMath facilitator. And it's just really beautiful to have this kind of research that's backing up. But the way we look at it from intuitive intelligence perspective is these two types, local and non-local. And the local being my energetic sensitivity, my gut instincts, my body being that oracle of going, yes, no, stay, go, right? And all of that happening from an instinctual place. Carolyn Mace calls this life protecting life. That we have an inbuilt system that is meant to support us. So our local intuition is primary. It's our primary intuition. And it is meant to work with our survival system. So what could go wrong here? We're wired for this, right? Well, what can go wrong is that we're also conditioned into stress. And so that goes back to that question of like, is it my anxiety? Is it my fear? Or is it my intuition? And how many of us are stuck in that place that when we get that anxious thing, something's gonna happen. I know something's gonna happen, right? And so what happens is that we're reading electromagnetic field. We're energy. There's lots of things going on in our body, but we might not be regulated. We might have things going on in our hormones that are dysregulated, our neurological system that are dysregulated. I mean, the stuff we're putting in our body and on our skin and all of these things, it affects how our system's running, right? And so when that's out of whack, and then I have a sensation and I label that as anxiety, but I also believe that that anxiety, I've got to find a reason for it. And I have to go into story. And so I'm trying to contextualize that anxiety. And so I believe that anxiety is my intuition, right? Now, this is complicated. I'm not going to say that if a discomfort or an anxious feeling arises, that's not your anxiety, that's not your intuition speaking to you, because I'm not inside your system. But what I am going to say is that our intuition and our anxiety are not quite the same. All right. And what we want to do is have our system, our nervous system regulated, right? So that we're making our neurological system safe, so that if there is a situation where my primary gut instinct needs to tell me, run, I believe it. If I live at this heightened beta brain stress state and I get that run, oh, I don't know, like he's probably okay. Like, I don't, it's right. I'm going to argue with my intuition. So I don't even know it's my intuition because I'm not ever living in enough of an open state to be able to hear and to notice the difference. So one of these aspects of getting our primary intuition, our local intuition to really be functioning, right, is taking care of our gut. That's, the research coming out about our gut biome and our, all of that, right? So it's some gut health. The healthier our gut gets, the more our instincts will be operating in a way that we will listen and trust them and know what's happening there, right? And it's also been about not believing all the BS stories that are going on in our mind, and really learning to bring us out of that high beta brainwave into that alpha beta threshold where we're more open, we're more available, we can see from multiple perspectives, we're not stuck and rigid, right? So all of these things are going to be helping us to live from this biological state of our intuition much easier, being able to fully have that gut instinct so that we know our yeses and our nos. Somebody goes, do you want to do this? And I can trust my biological, my innate biological intuition to go, I'm a yes, or I'm a no. And I don't have to wrestle with my mind because my system's wired to know my yes and my no. And I can receive that really easily when I'm in this state of openness, right? So this is why a lot of intuitional perspectives or teachings will kind of bypass this level of the body. And I actually think that embodying our intuition, it's very important to partner with our physical state, to partner with our stress system, to partner with our gut system, to partner with, just having our physical body open and available. And I don't think that's a level of fitness, but I do think that's a level of connection that we want to be in with our biological state. All right. So now let's move to the kind of the bridge between our local and our non-local. Actually, let me just say some facts about the non-local intuition before I do that. So non-local intuition is it's available to us because all living beings are interconnected, right? Again, we're energy first. We're all one, right? So we're interconnected through the unified field. So here's a quote from HeartMath. It says, "It has been suggested that the capacity to receive and process information about non-local events appears to be a property of all biological organization. And this is likely because of the inherent interconnectedness of everything in the universe." Right? So we are connected. What this non-local intuition means is that I don't have to be in proximity, and that proximity is both time and space. So when we talk about something about past lives or concurrent lives, that would come from non-local intuition because I don't need to be in proximity to time and space. We also don't have to talk about healing as being I can't even think of what people say. Anyway, it doesn't happen because we're close together. It doesn't happen because we're in proximity. I've totally taken that word out of my brain. That you'll often see people remote healing, I think is maybe what it's called. Anyway, but because of the way our system heals, it doesn't matter if we're close or far. Energy is energy, right? And what's amazing if we look at the science that's coming out about what resonance means, it's that you can have particles on opposite sides of the earth that have never been close together that are affected and affected by different experiences. So our non-local intuition, it opens up our possibility for this human experience. Because if we're not bound by time and space, which we're not, if we will step into that level of living, then what means is this higher level of intuition, it invites us to live in a consciousness that's more expanded and more open and more available to what we would call miracle state. Okay, this is amazing. It's so exciting. So the subsets of the non-local intuition, we've got our communion intuition. And that is partially biological. So it's partially still we're working with needing to have some proximity, needing to have some closeness with that electromagnetic field. And also we're noticing there's other information coming in that's not causal, that's not located in my time and space. Right? We're beginning to see the bigger picture of what we can receive when we're in this communion. And we think about communion as being communication. So I began to be in communication with this intuition. It's amazing, right? And this is generally where many of us will say, well, I had an awakening experience, right? I'm having this experience of opening up and awakening. So what can go wrong here? Well, often the communication we're having is that it's a one-way conversation. It's not a dialogue. And that one-way conversation could be one, we show up with a shopping list to the universe. We get stuck in this idea of manifesting more creature comforts and helping and kind of showing up with like, these are the things I want. So I want to manifest the big house or lots of money or a great relationship. Nothing wrong with any of those. But the question would be, am I moving from that place as a dialogue with the universe as what's really part of my purpose? What's going to serve my awakening? What am I really here to do in the service of humanity? Now, maybe in my service of humanity, which is probably very true of myself personally, is I don't need a big house. I don't know how to take care of a big house. I don't want that, right? So just to sort of say that that would be a symbol that would say that I am more intuitive or I am more spiritual or that I've come to a certain level of my evolution because I've manifested some creature comfort is a misuse of my intuition. That is a misuse of my power. And so all of these creature comforts that we might want, we need to be in dialogue. They need to be a conversation between us and the universe. What is in service to my continued awakening? What serves me to be resourced so I can show up in the world in a certain way? Not just to get, just to show up with a shopping list of what would make me feel cool or good or important. All right. So that's one of the big shadows that can come at this communion state of intuition, is that we're having the one-sided conversation where we just show up and go, hey, I'd like these things. Thanks. Let's make it happen. Go, go, go. Right. The other side of the one-sided conversation is we go, okay, somebody help me. Oh. Right. So we want the communication just to be coming at us. We don't want to co-create. We don't want to participate. We don't even maybe want to say our dreams or our needs or our desires. We just want someone else to figure it out. Hopefully, we've maybe tried that one-way conversation with a partner, with our parents, with our jobs, and that didn't work out. So maybe the universe, God, maybe something will come and save me, right? So that one-way conversation will be, kind of coming in the opposite direction. So to be in the empowered part of our communion state is this receiving and giving, listening and sharing, where we're recognizing this is where our worth comes in big time. Because if I believe that whatever my construct or belief system around a higher power is, but if I believe I am less than that higher power, so if I believe that I am not that I am, then I am not going to be able to be in this level of empowered communication, because I'm going to feel like either I'm going to have my higher power sitting as, in that kind of father or parent state that, I need the universe to take care of me and give me this stuff because like I'm just a lowly human. Or I'm going to be thinking that I've got to challenge that aspect to be like, yeah, give me this stuff, right? So it's really important that if we've got our worth on par, if we've got our worth on point, then we're able to have this dialogue as an equal. I am that I am. I am unlimited consciousness participating in this whole creation of this experience of living by being in this human body. I am not less because I'm human, right? And so we have to be able to come into that clarity to be able to be in a dialogue with our divine self, right? So important. And then the second subset of the non-local intuition, which is wholly non-local, is our surrender intuition. If you haven't read the Surrender Experiment, read that book. It's a very good text to begin to sort of go, wow, that surrender. So surrender is active. We often think again of surrender being passive, of kind of going into that collapse state of like, okay, well, I'll surrender. That's resolve. That's apathy. That's purposelessness. We want our surrender to be really active so that we're participating, right? I have this great idea, I have this desire, I have this thing, and I surrender to what could be the potential and possibility, meaning that I'm not going to cling to where that creation or that expression could go, but I'm going to show up for it. I'm going to show up 110% for it. And I'm going to allow the universe to show me the potential. If I try and create my life at my level of human consciousness, I've tried that, and it's pretty dissatisfying. But if I'm willing to surrender my dreams and open up to the potential and possibility, and I'm going to co-create and partner with my higher self, then life can get really magical and really exciting. So this surrender intuition is that we allow ourselves to dream, to vision, to participate, to desire, to long, to be inspired. And then we say, hey, if I show up, what can happen? And the higher levels of our consciousness go, oh, that's fun. Let's do that. Let's see what could happen. Let's see what would happen, right? Marianne Williamson, through the Course in Miracles, teaches, we will receive the miracle at the level that we are able to accept it. Meaning that all potential is available in this moment. It's all here for us. But the level that we're entraining our consciousness to hold is the level where we will meet it. So we can only meet potential at the place that we're surrender or open to. So if we want to open our potential, if we want to have access to our full capacity, the superpower of being our highly intuitive self, then we need a level of consciousness that will accept what might be confusing to our human senses, right? We might need to, as Wayne Dyer says, to believe it before we see it. And so as we open to this level of surrendering to what's greater than just what I can lift myself, and I'm willing to receive support in that lifting and to soften and open my system so I can receive more than I could ever give. And this is so hard for us, right? That there's more available for me to receive than I would ever be able to give back. Again, we have to work those worthiness pieces, because our unworthiness will say, maybe I don't deserve to receive anything, or maybe I receive, and this is where I tend to fall into, I could receive as much as I give. So if I've worked really hard for it, then I could receive it, right? And what this surrender intuition invites us to do is to dream and open to a bigger picture. Not, again, to serve my creature comforts, but to serve humanity, to serve creating a new dream that we as a human family can live into. That's the power and the potency that can come from opening to this surrender intuition. So to me, it doesn't matter if you remember all those names whatsoever about any of this. The name of the book is The Surrender Experiment. It's excellent. And I know he's got a couple of books. Michael Singer is the author. Really amazing teacher. So if we're willing to just open to our intuition, what I really want you to remember is that there's multiple types. And you can just remember there's the local, your electromagnetic, your gut sense, your biological, and there is the non-local, meaning that you're opening to a larger part of your consciousness. That's all you really need to remember. You don't have to worry about the labels. And in fact, I encourage people to create vocabulary that is more organic and works for them, right? So if surrender is not a good word for you, because maybe there's still a little bit of a trigger around it, come up with a different word. It's all good. It's all about you being willing to know the truth of who you are, and you being willing to inhabit more of your fullness and more of your capacity in it. I've missed so much on the chat. So if there was any questions that you had for me that I skipped over, if you would pop them back in, I would be happy to go over them. And what I'm going to do while you're doing that is tell you 5 things that I invite you to begin right now on this process of building a foundation of embodying your intuition. And the first thing is having a relationship with your breath. And I'll talk more about why this is so important as this series goes on. But having a relationship with your breath is paramount. And so that could be more of a formal relationship, as if you're doing breath work and things like that. But what it could also be is just paying attention to the fact that you're breathing. Thank goodness we breathe automatically, right? Thank goodness. And the moment that we turn our attention and our awareness toward our breath, amazing things happen. Amazing things happen in our system. And so just even taking a few moments a day to begin to say, hey, look at you breathing. Look at that breath coming in. How does that feel? What do I notice? What might I want from my breath? How could I deepen it, soften it, explore it, whatever it might be? Just staying curious. I don't have a circle right now, okay, but that's why I'm teaching on Insight Timer, but I am doing some other teaching and work as well. Heart coherence. So we're going to do that practice to wrap up. But as the research from the Heart Math Institute tells us, when we can get the electromagnetic field of our heart, which is the largest, the heart produces the largest electromagnetic field in the body, bigger than the brain. And you know, so it's even called the heart brain now. We've got the heart, the brain, the mind brain, head brain, heart brain, gut brain. So more than one brain operating inside of our body. But when we get this heart, when we get the field of our heart to have this beautiful wave inside of the energy pattern, what happens is that our whole system goes, oh, look, life. More information is moving from your heart to your brain, your head brain, than from your head to your heart. So even though the journey from our head to our heart might be one of the longest journeys we take, it is one of the most important. So when we began to move from this place of coherence in the heart field, and we let the heart brain begin to lead, it's amazing. So our non-local intuition will all be heart-based, right? So it's gonna, it can interface. And I'm not going to talk a lot about I won't talk anything about the chakras today, but except just to say that if we want anything that we call the third eye, or remote viewing, or any of these other abilities to come online, it's going to be through the heart. So when our heart is regulated, when our heart field, the electromagnetic field of our heart is open, you can go Google toroidal fields. I think Megan's here. Megan, will you spell that? Toroidal field, or toral field into, so if you go Google that, you'll see a beautiful picture. And what's amazing is that this field is what all biological beings have. And when we're in heart coherence, our field expands. It's pretty magical. Change your mind about yourself. Third thing you can do, change your mind about yourself. Be diligent and willing to change your mind. Step into this worthiness. This, for me, is one of our biggest aspects. And so much of what we're dealing with, so much of our suffering and our pain, physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain, all of this comes because of our conditionings around original sin, around not being enough, the way, our experiences in this world have seemed to have taught us, you don't matter, I don't care about you. And it's a vigilant job that we must take on to shift that pattern, and to shift our state, and to step into our I am presence. We cannot not do this work. And notice the hunches, notice the synchronicities, and be willing to follow through. So how many times do you get a hunch? How many times do you notice a synchronicity? And rather than following through, and often our following through is to stay curious rather than looking for an answer. So curiosity goes like this, and answers go like this, right? And so when we can stay curious, then more hunches and more synchronicities, and we're going to start all of that information. And then eventually we're going to start finding that pattern, that weaving, right? And again, if we can step out of this idea that our intuition is about getting an answer, right? And we can be more in the trust, then what we're going to find is that we can follow through. We can follow through. And that follow through builds trust, right? And when our trust muscle starts getting strong, then we're ready to keep opening up and living at more of an expanded state. And our capacity is like getting bigger and bigger and bigger, to be present, to be alive, to be really, really here for life, right? So don't ignore those hunches. Don't go, it was really interesting. Or, what was, right? That thing where like, it was really interesting that happened. No, I mean, it is interesting, but it's not interesting from that place of like, where we're saying interesting in that questioning way. Of course it's interesting. Of course you get synchronicities. Of course you thought of that thing and then you saw it 3 times, right? Of course you heard that name over and over again. Yes, that is your intuition. That's the information arriving for you to follow through with. So be willing to do that. Build your confidence with following through on those hunches. One of the things that keeps us stuck is going, I'm not sure if it's my intuition. Follow through on the hunch. You'll know that way. You'll know that way, right? And again, our intuition's not to keep us from, certain aspects of life. It's not to protect us from the experience of life. It's to allow us to follow the experience of life from this place of support and connection. So the last thing I'm going to invite you to do, number 5, is to open your sensory system. And again, right now, what I invite you to do is to begin to do that through using the senses that you're already involved in. Actually see. Really listen. Feel textures on your skin. Feel sensations in your body. Taste things, smell things. Really open up your sensory system. What if we fear that leap? Such a good question. Such a good question. What if we fear that leap? That really comes back to 2 places. 1, regulate your nervous system. Regulate your nervous system. Just start there. Just start regulating your nervous system. and then stay curious about what that fear is. Because that fear probably didn't just start randomly. It's going to be tied to an experience where you didn't feel safe or where separation was confirmed for you. And so if you can just stay curious while regulating your nervous system. So we want to do both things. We want to up regulate. So we want to bring our nervous system into safety, and we want to down regulate the stress or the fear. And then when those two places can meet, we're not going to have that resistance anymore to that fear of that leap, right? So what I do not encourage people to do is go hurling into that leap, right? Because that's just going to create constriction on the other side. That's just going to shut you down. So what I would prefer you to do is spend a lot more time just staying curious about that fear, journaling about it, writing about it, just being curious. And while you're doing that, really lifting up. So number 4 was noticing the hunches and following through. Number 1, breath. Number 2, heart coherence. Number 3, change your mind about yourself, work on those worthiness pieces. Number 4, follow the hunches and the synchronicities. Number 5, open your sensory system. Those are the 5 things I can invite you to do right now from wherever you are in your life, right? And so part of regulating that nervous system might be practicing the heart coherence right now. So let's do a little practice, and then I'll check. I said I was going to look for questions, and I kept talking. Let me just scroll back for a little bit. Oh, yes, I am. Yes, it is on our list to look at how to do the 5th circle in Insight Timer. Thank you for that reminder. Yes, we will figure that out. Yep, number 4, got that. Regulate nervous system, absolutely. Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you. Very good, very good. Any tips on staying curious about first? Yes. So what I like to do is remind myself that inside of my fear is the gold, right? And so I've got a meditation on the Insight Timer called shifting fear. So that might be a good one to do. But what I like to think about is there's this gold nugget of my truth, and then the fear is all around it. And that fear is doing exactly what it's designed to do, which is 2 things. From the place of where I think I'm not safe, it's protecting me. That is absolutely what it's that's how my ego is designed, right? So it's okay, just doing its job. Number 2, it's also pointing me. It's also the information I need that's going, flashing signs. Look here, the gold is here. Look right here. Don't run away from it. Go right here. Go to that fear. So things you can do. I like to sit down and dialogue with my fear. So I just imagine, hey, we're going to have a cup of tea. Why don't you tell me what you're feeling? Why don't you tell me what you're so afraid of? Why don't you tell me what you're worried about is going to happen? And I don't argue with it. I'm not going to fix it. I want to get to know it, right? So just as if, I'm not a parent, but I've helped to raise my nephew. And when he was afraid of something, I would just say, well, tell me about it. Tell me what you're afraid of and going, to school today. Tell me what's going on. And then I might notice there's a place for support inside of that, but it might just be getting to notice, right? But if we can stay curious about that fear, just listening to it, letting it tell us what we need to know, letting it show us where our neurological system's not in safety, letting it tell us where we don't believe we're worthy, letting it show us where some experience from our past, generally from the first 7 years of our life, gave us the information that we think means we don't get this or this is not for us, right? So we can just stay curious. We don't need to fix ourselves. We can just follow the threads back. So I think one of the aspects of staying curious about our fear is to have enough safety in our neurological system that we can find the staying with the uncomfortableness of our fear, right? And so right now that might be it's 2 minutes, and then that's enough, and I need to let it go. And then maybe next week it's oh, I've done my 2 minutes, and now I'm at 3 minutes, right? And so we can just keep staying with it and staying curious. Good. Thank you for those of you writing those numbers in the chat box. I love it. See, this is how we take care of community. I'll just say them one more time as well. Number 1, build a relationship with your breath. Number 2, practice heart coherence. Number 3, change your mind about yourself. Step into your worthiness. Number 4, notice the hunches and follow through. Number 5, open your sensory system. Yeah. Those are 5 really tangible things. So for me, as what I really believe in too, is we have to take these transformations, the idea of enlightenment or awakening, like out of this loftiness, out of this abstraction, bring it tangible transformation I can walk out, that I can engage this body, my life into, right? So I don't want to just to sit loftily and think about it. I want to move into it. All right. So let's finish up with some heart coherence, and then I'll check in on any other questions. I'm so glad to see that you're excited about this. I am so excited about this. I am committed to this. I'm committed to this work. So thank you for showing up for it. Thank you for being willing to hear this message wherever it's meeting you on your path. You might be a highly intuitive, already living in your superpower. This might be your first experience of having a conversation about it. Yes. Nikki or Megan, will you type in number 4 and 5, hunches and sensory system, so we can get a full copy of that? All right. Good. Yes. So if it's available for you to go ahead and close down those eyes, do that. And then I just want you to notice your breath in this moment. Just saying hello, saying thank you to your breath. And then from this place, invite that breath to soften, to deepen. And as that breath is coming in and going out, your body is softening. Notice if you can give over to gravity a little bit more. And so whether the breath is coming in through your nose or in through your mouth, what we're going to imagine is that the breath could come in and out of the chest. So if it feels good for you, you could bring 2 fingers or your hand to the center of your chest. As you open your curiosity and imagination to breathing in and out of the heart space. And let's take that imagination a little bit deeper, and let's imagine that the breath could come in through the front of the heart space, in through the chest, and then out the back. And then what if on the next breath it could come in the back and out the front? And just centering your awareness now of this breath through your imagination of moving in and out of this heart space. And now bring to your mind's eye a memory, a time that you felt appreciated or cared for, or something, someone, someplace that you're grateful for. And as you bring forward that memory, make it very real in this moment. So really see the picture, take it into the senses, hear the sounds, feel your body there, maybe even taste and smell. And then give yourself over to the feelings. Care, appreciation, gratitude. Give all of yourself over to feeling through this memory a time of care, appreciation, or gratitude. Keep amplifying that, dialing it up. When you feel like you've reached the edge of how much gratitude, just soften and dive deeper into that memory and receive a bit more. I'm going to be silent for just a few minutes as you really amplify this. And just know as we're doing this that you are so supported and held. Now take a really deep breath in through the nose and hold at the top of the inhale. And then as you're ready, exhale out the mouth with a sigh. And staying in this open state of gratitude, care, and appreciation, bring some gentle movement to the body. Blink open your eyes and arrive back into your life in a more coherent state. So very good. Thank you so much for your practice. If you have any last questions, you can pop those in. If you want to do that type of practice with me, I think I've got shifting your fear and one other one that's a heart practice like that on Insight Timer. So you can just follow me and check out the meditations there, and you can do that. And yeah, it's pretty amazing work. Just it seems kind of simple. I think simple is the best way to go sometimes, and it can really make a huge difference. I'm so glad you're feeling better. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your willingness to dive into this conversation. Please feel free. I'm trying to do better about remembering to check my email on Insight Timer, so feel free to send me a message if you have questions or want to know more. And I will, this is the only Friday I'm doing this month. All the other sessions, I believe, are on Saturday, but you can check out my events, and we'll be doing a bit of a moon practice, more breathwork and somatics, and then more of these sessions around embodying your intuition and how do we do this. Thank you so much for being here. This is my first live. No, I've been doing practices, so this is my first talk teaching, but yeah, I've been doing some practices. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, me too. I'm looking forward to the moon. I love working with the moon energy. Yes, you can find me on Insta and what's it called? Facebook. Just Elisha Halpin should take you where you need to go. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day, night, wherever you are. Yes, Elisha Halpin. Yeah. That's it. Love you.
So good. Thank you. Hot damn.